Hey, what's up, everyone? It's Joe Simpson. I'm sitting here in quarantine in my basement. Had the COVIDs on Wednesday. I am almost all done. I feel really good today. I sound a little stuffy in the nose, but I wanted to do this video. A, I'm really bored, and B, I'm really pumped to be able to share this with somebody who might be having frustrations, much like I did. When I bought the iPhone 13 Pro, I thought, hey, I'm going to get this magic camera and I'm going to get all this great footage and everything's going to be perfect. Well, I came down to my studio and I thought, well, could I use my iPhone to do studio recordings for like YouTube? And of course, the answer is yes, but it's not quite as easy and it's a little more fickle than like a DSLR or a Micro Four Thirds type camera. The Lumix G9 that I have down here works out perfect. I can set my lighting, I can dial in my white balance, I can set my exposure, everything's, manual, and I can get it dialed in perfectly. But as soon as I hooked up my iPhone, I noticed right away that the iPhone didn't like my lights as much as my other cameras did, and it made my skin tones look really wonky. And one other thing happened. I'm recording in HDR mode, but I'm using ProRes. You don't have to use ProRes. You could just use regular HDR, and it's the same thing. But ProRes is a little easier to manipulate when you're doing color grading and stuff. So let me just drop down these different clips that I took. You'll see right away when you put an HDR clip into Final Cut that it throws up a notice that says these are HDR clips in an SDR project. So unless you created an HDR project to begin with, these won't show up properly. So what you have to do is, it's not a big deal. First of all, you'll see these look all like bleached out and overexposed. So because the format is not set up to handle it. So I'm just going to grab all of these clips, right? And then I'm going to go over here and there's a thing called HDR tools. It's right there. So just apply that to all these clips. Okay. And each clip, go up to HDR tool and go up here to HLG, and it'll bring everything back into play. You'll see here, this one, go here, HLG. All of a sudden it looks normal. It actually looks pretty good. You want to be able to color grade these clips, and out of the box, I don't think the skin tones look great on any of these. And I'm sure if I got out into normal lighting or non-artificial lighting, we might do a little bit better. But these don't look particularly awesome to me. So I wanted to show you something that I did. And so when you go to these clips, you can see right away my graphs here. And if you try to add a wheels and start messing around with these colors, this picture is pretty good out of the box. You might like it with whatever you're watching it on. It's a little washed out for me, and I like a little more contrast in my image. And it's a little over sharp. So some of the things you might want to do to make your picture a little bit better is try to find a way to make the contrast look a little better. So one thing you could do is you could bring down, your image brightness a little bit. You could play around with the brightness to see what's going on there. Sometimes you can pull out a little bit more richness when you mess with your skin tones. And then the other thing is you want to see, like, does adding or taking away saturation help anything? And then you want to check also your temperature to see if you're white balancing properly, because you might want to be on a little bit more on the cool side of things. And so that look right there might be a more neutral, little bit better contrasty look. So when you look at this up close, it looks just more like me. Okay, so it's not bad. Right now I'm saying, okay, it's not too bad. I don't like some of the extra sharpness that I'm getting in this image. So one thing you can do to knock down sharpness, I think I have two apps on my phone. I have the regular camera app on my phone and I have Movie Pro. I don't know if you can knock sharpness down on the Movie Pro. I'll look at that. But you can do it a different way, and you can add a Gaussian blur, and you can just drop this over on the clip. Now it'll make the clip look blurry and you'll panic, but go up here to the settings for the Gaussian blur and just double click the amount and just put 1. And believe it or not, just hitting 1 will soften that image up just a little bit. I mean, it just knocks that extra sharpness down just a touch to makes it look real again. Okay, so that's one way you could do this clip. I'm going to erase these other clips because I'm not going to go through grading them all. But this clip right here is done in Movie Pro, and I like it because it has a very flat look to it. It's a really nice flat image, and it's not trying too hard to do anything. But what I like about this image is that, wow, these faces that I'm making are awesome. What I like about this image is that it's easy to start from. What you need to do when you're grading these projects is remember your settings. That's the most important thing. So if you're setting up on these lights and you're getting overexposed and you realize you need to do a -1 exposure and you need to change some things, then do that. So what I did with this one was I went into Movie Pro. I recorded this on ProRes light, and I did a -1.5 exposure, and I fiddled around with it until I got it right. Now, once you go over here and you fiddle around with your color grades and you do all your effects and your transforms and whatever you do, you can save that effects preset right here. Now, I know when I set up the Movie Pro down here, the Movie Pro app with the iPhone, and I record, I know to set it to -1.5. I know the settings for my lights, and then I have a preset that I saved, and I know that it's an HDR, it's Movie Pro, it's ProRes Light. You can see the inscription here, and I have exposure -1.5. Everything else is auto focus, auto white balance. And see what happens when I hover over this effect? This clip looks like this, but I have a pre-baked preset for this type of clip for this setting. So I know if it's an HDR clip from Movie Pro and it has ProRes Light as the codec and it's an exposure -1.5 and it has autofocus and auto white balance, this is the thing that's going to bring it back to being true. So you can see all these settings that I've had are already baked in there. So if we were to take that off, undo the effect add, you've got a clip that looks like this. So instead of going through HDR tools and then like color grading it, I've already got a preset. So literally I highlight the clip, I double click the effect, and I'm good. This will really streamline your effects and stuff. So if you open this up, you can see I've already messed around with the sharpness, I've messed around with the colors, and everything looks better. Anyway, I've got everything set up to where it's on autopilot and you don't have to worry about the settings anymore. Hey, I just wanted to bring you that information and show you how I handled the iPhone 13 Pro's video, trying to use it in my studio setting. My lights are a little bit daylight. They're 6500K. The white balance and the skin tones weren't working out for me. So once I dialed in everything, I think the key was with the iPhone was dialing back the exposure, putting it like a -1 or -1.5. And I found that using Movie Pro gave me better results. I think the auto white balance in Movie Pro is a little bit better. Really just pick your app of choice, remember your settings, and set an effects preset like you can do in Final Cut Pro, and then just drop that on and it'll reduce your time and effort and make things a lot easier for you. Hope that was helpful. I'll talk to you guys soon. Take care.